Do you have good credit? What's your credit score?
Lease based on an agreed upon value of $19,845.41.50 due out of pocket, plus $1,000 NMAC customer cash rebate equals $51.50 total due at signing, plus tax and license on approved above average credit through Nissan Motors Acceptance Corporation, $0 security deposit.
We all know the score. Credit is important. Your credit score is important, but I don't think many of us really understand what goes into a credit score. I've heard a lot of misinformation over the years about it, so I thought that we'd actually look at it today. It's really pretty interesting and not quite what you expected. All right, so I'm going to share a link with you in the description below to a website called FICO, and FICO, F-I-C-O, is essentially your FICO score. That's your credit score, and it ranges basically between 580 and under and 800 plus, and somewhere around 670 to 740 is a good score. You're considered average or slightly above average, but I don't think many of us really understand what goes into it. But your FICO score is incredibly important to almost anything you do as an adult that involves financing. That includes whether you buy or lease a car, when you get a mortgage, when you apply for a credit card. All of them basically pull your credit score, and it's a single 3-digit number that basically tells lenders whether you're a good bet or not. Now, certainly things are going to change that a little bit. Especially like when you look at a mortgage, they're going to look at your debt to income ratio and things like that. So they go a little bit deeper than just the score. But there's 3 companies that determine your credit score because they pull all of this information and calculate it. And the 3 agencies are Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Now, there are people who offer to get your credit for you and charge money. I'm going to go ahead and tell you up front, you get 1 free credit report for you annually. So you can go to annualcreditreport.com, for example, and just ask for a copy of your credit report. And I advise you to do this every single year. Check through it and make sure the information is correct. Make sure there's not bad information on there. I want to say I read a statistic once that something like 20% of all people have at least one error on their credit report. It's kind of out there. And I've heard also the Biden administration has floated the proposal to move credit reporting up to the federal government. And I'm not totally opposed to this. Right now, the 3 credit reporting agencies are for profit, and they don't really have you, the consumer, the borrower, in mind, right? They're not interested in whether it's right or not, whether their reports have errors. They do an okay job trying to fix it, but it can be cumbersome and it can be slow and very, very impersonal. But more importantly is they don't take into account a couple of really important things. One is rental payments and one is utility payments. So if you're paying on a car or you're paying on a house, they take that into account, but they're not taking into account if you're renting and paying those utilities. So if you are paying your rent on time, you're paying your utilities on time, you're not helping prove to somebody that you're a good credit risk when you go to, say, buy a house. And I think that's wrong. I think that really discriminates against lower income people who can make the payments consistently. They're reliable, they're willing to do the right thing, but they're just not able to get that information or enough information onto their credit report. So that's a conversation for another day. We'll see where that goes. I'm not a big fan of making the government bigger because surely they'll find a reason to raise my taxes by doing this, but I do think that's actually a good move. But we'll see. So what goes into a credit score, as you can look right here, is 35% is your payment history, 30% is the amounts owed, 15% is length of credit history, 10% is new credit, and 10% is your credit mix. So let's dig into this just a little bit and talk about them. For example, what is payment history? Payment history shows how you've paid on your accounts over the length of your credit. And that's why it's 35%. They want to know that if you borrow money, you're actually going to pay it back. And so they look at your credit cards, retail accounts, say like department stores, things like that. installment loans like an auto loan, finance, and mortgage loans. And they do pull in. This is where it really gets impacted when you declare bankruptcy. That'll stay on your credit report for 7 or 10 years. Lawsuits, wage attachments, things like that. Those impact your credit as well. And there's 7 things that make up your payment history. So there's the payment information on your different credit cards and mortgages and everything else. Do you have overdue and delinquent payments? How much money is still owed on delinquent accounts? The number of past due items on the credit report. That's where the bankruptcies come into play, the amount of time that's passed since delinquencies, and the number of accounts that are being paid as agreed. So basically, if you have a credit card, you have, a department store card, a gas card, and you've got your mortgage and an auto loan, and you're paying everything on time, you're doing absolutely everything right. If you've had some slow payments in the past, they take it into account, but they also look at how long ago it was. So basically this 35% is when you borrow money, do you pay it back on time? It's really nothing more simple than that. I think all of us would agree that that makes a lot of sense. Next up would be the amounts owed. All right, so this is in general how much debt you're carrying, and certainly relative to your income. So they're going to look at the amount owed on all accounts, the amount owed on different types of accounts, such as a credit card versus your auto payment, how many accounts have balances. And so if you have 5 cards and they all have really high balances on them, they're going to feel you're getting really, really stretched out. Your credit utilization ratio is the percentage of your available credit that you're using. So if you're using a high percentage of your available credit, it means you're close to maxing out your credit cards, which can negatively impact your FICO score, which makes sense. If they give you a credit card and it's got a $5,000 limit and you're at $4,900, they're a little concerned you're about to max everything out. Maybe you're starting to wander into a dangerous zone where you can't pay it on time. If you are using a low percentage, it can have a positive impact. And in some cases, a low credit utilization ratio will have more of a positive impact than not using any of your available credit at all. And that's really important. I'm going to pause there. One more thing we need to talk about. But low credit utilization ratio will have a more positive than not using it. So if I've got a credit card and I never ever use it, that doesn't help you as much as if you do use the card even a little bit and pay it off on a regular basis. That's really, really important. If you get a credit card, use it, don't abuse it. Don't go buy stereo equipment you can't afford, but use it maybe for money for things you are going to buy anyway and then pay it off. This is something I think I did pull a couple years ago, my credit score, and it was really good. It was 1 point higher than my wife's. That was really important. And part of that is a lot of our stuff for Amazon is through my card. So the Amazon Prime, or when we order to rent a movie for $4, or I buy $14 in light bulbs or something like that, and then I pay it off, I'm using that credit. So that's a big one, is don't just ignore it and think you're doing right. You've got to use it a little bit. You just don't want to abuse it. And then the last one here they mention is how much of an installment loan is still owed compared to the original amount. So they give the example, you borrow $10,000 to buy a car, you've paid back $2,000, you still owe more than 80%. So if you're paying down installment loans, it shows you're a good sign. It shows that you are a good risk. You are going to pay it back and manage your debt. Next up is length of credit history. And they give an example here like fine wine, whiskey, and cheese. Most credit histories get better with age. And so what they're looking at is how long you've had credit, how long the specific credit accounts have been opened, and how long it's been since it's been used. And so this one's really, really important. I'm going to reach over here real quick. And I have this card. All right. Nope, not that one. Yes, that. No. Yeah, this one. Sorry. This is a Citi card. All right. I have had a Citi card. I truly don't know. I probably got it in my early 20s, so I've probably had this for nearly 30 years. The limit has gone up, the limit's gone down. The credit, the actual interest rate has dropped rather dramatically. I was going to cancel it until I checked what the interest rate was and was pretty surprised that it's not terribly unreasonable, and it has no annual fee. So that's my primary card for, like I said, Amazon Prime and things like that when I buy presents, things like that. But what's really important here is I'm glad when I looked at canceling the card, I talked myself out of it, because part of the length of credit, you'll notice, is how long specific accounts have been opened. So if you had a card and you cancel it and got another one, you've actually hurt yourself, because that new card, now you have this little tiny length of having it available, whereas I have decades of this one Citi account that they can look at and say, hey, he's paid it on time for 25 years, let's say. How long has it been used since the account? How long has it been since the account's been used? Hey, he used it last month and paid it off. So the length of your credit makes a lot of sense. So this is when you start. I encourage you, if you have teenagers or if you are a teenager, get a small credit card, even if you have to have a cosigner for it or do a secured credit card. Start establishing the credit, use it just a little bit, put $14 in gas on it and then pay it off, and keep it so that it helps build that confidence in your FICO score. You've had it for a long time and you've never abused it. They're looking at that, and that's 15% of your credit history. Next up is new credit, and that is an indication of whether you're going and getting a bunch of other new credit. For example, if you have a credit card and all of a sudden you apply for 3 others, the next one's going to be like, wait, they're getting a bunch of credit cards. They might be looking to run it up, right? This also pulls into, I believe, when they pull your credit. So if you're going to get an auto loan and they pull your credit, it can have an impact on your score, because if you have several hits, they'll drop your score because they think you're looking to run up more credit, more debt, all right? And the last 10% is your credit mix. And again, I think this is a big one that people don't really understand, really don't think about. And that is that there's several different kinds, right? There's your credit cards, there's retail store cards, there's gas cards, there's a HELOC, a home equity line of credit. You've also got your mortgage, an auto loan, and a student loan. So they're looking for you to not just have one type of credit. Certainly as you get older, you would expect somebody to have, the gas card and maybe a retail card and then a credit card, and then they're going to get their auto loan and some student loans, maybe not in that order, and they're going to get more. They want to see your credit building so that it's a pie, not a line, right? And so it's important to have a mix of credit and to be aware of it. I'm going to end with this, which is, but finance, personal finance, investing, building wealth and a life of abundance is about knowing the game. I could do a video about the credit score and, like I said, the changes they're proposing to it, but it is what it is right now. And we can hope that it changes and becomes more fair in the future. But right now, you just have to learn to play the game. And thank you for watching the video, because most people don't look at it in this much detail. They aren't aware. They know they've got a score and they hope it's high. They've got a credit card with a small balance, but they don't really know what falls into it. But now, you know a little bit more. You know that, hey, if I have an auto loan and I have a credit card, maybe it doesn't hurt me to go get, a JCPenney card, a gas card. Use your credit. If you have a card over there that you've never used, hey, maybe it makes sense to go put a little bit on it, buy your groceries on it, and pay it right off again the next month. Now you can learn how to play the game, because when your score is up, the higher it is, the better rates, the better terms you're going to get. You're going to get the best interest rate, the best terms, and that helps keep more money in your pocket to focus over here towards some investments. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, let me know. Appreciate your time here. Please give me a thumbs up. That's the most important thing you can do for your credit, if I'm being honest with you. And if you haven't been here before, please subscribe. But I greatly appreciate it, and I look forward to hearing from you.